They'll never tell you the truth, but you've always known something sacred was protecting you. While others rushed into love that shattered, commitments that decayed, and connections that drained the soul, you stood alone. Not because you were unloved, but because you were guarded, because heaven itself placed a shield around you, not to punish you, but to preserve you. Chosen one, this is not loneliness. This is divine strategy. You weren't abandoned, you were hidden. You see, when God sets you apart for something bigger, He doesn't place you where noise surrounds your spirit. He doesn't allow anyone to mishandle the sacred oil you carry. He doesn't let just anyone speak into your heart or sleep beside your destiny. That's why you've been single, not forgotten, not overlooked, but protected, guarded like a treasure in the depths of heaven's vault. And maybe there were times it didn't feel like protection. Maybe it felt like punishment, like silence, like a curse wrapped in the disguise of unanswered prayers. You cried at night, didn't you? Asking, why not me? Why does love always pass me by? But what you didn't realize, beloved, is that you weren't passed over. You were passed around by angels, kept safe from the ones who could have broken you before you bloomed. They would have loved you prematurely, and that kind of love destroys the divine. Chosen one, I need you to understand this. Your path has never been ordinary because your soul never was. You weren't born to live a common life, so God didn't allow you to be tied to common people. You weren't called to settle, so God didn't allow you to get stuck. And while others mocked your singleness, heaven applauded your resilience, because only those with the strongest calling endure the wilderness of waiting. And oh, the wilderness was long, wasn't it? You watched people around you form relationships, get married, raise families. And though you were happy for them, there was a hollow ache inside you, a longing not just to be loved, but to be understood. You never wanted a body beside you, you wanted a soul that matched yours. And that's rare. That's not found in dating apps or Sunday brunches or surface-level conversations. That's found in the fire. And you, chosen one, have walked through fire alone. That kind of journey doesn't produce a desperate heart. It produces discernment. That's why you couldn't just fall for anyone. That's why your heart rejected what others called perfect. That's why your spirit recoiled when someone with good looks but a dead soul tried to enter your life. You were never being picky. You were being preserved, because what God is preparing for you requires a partner, not just a person. Someone with spiritual depth, not shallow charm. Someone with the same divine frequency as you, not a counterfeit wrapped in false light. And if God would have given them to you too soon, it would have destroyed both of you, because timing is everything in the kingdom. What good is a soulmate if neither of you are ready? What good is love if it can't carry the weight of the calling? You had to heal, you had to evolve, you had to become the version of yourself that could recognize real love. Not because it felt good, but because it aligned with God. And so God said, wait. Not because you're broken, but because you're being made whole. Not because you're incomplete, but because your completeness must be protected until it meets its equal. You've been waiting not for a wedding, but for a warrior. Not for a relationship, but for revelation. You've been kept single, not out of punishment, but out of preparation. Because the kind of connection you're destined for isn't found, it's revealed. And only when both souls are refined in solitude can they see each other clearly. So yes, you've been alone, but never abandoned. Heaven has been watching over you like a hawk. Every false connection that fell through, that was God. Every heartbreak that didn't happen, that was divine interception. Every person who ghosted you, that was protection in disguise. And every night you lay in bed thinking you were forgotten, angels were singing over you, hold on, it's not time yet. Because what's coming is holy. And if you're truly honest, you know you didn't want to just be loved. You wanted to be seen, deeply, spiritually, eternally. And only someone who has also walked alone can truly see you. That's why God allowed you to walk this path alone for so long, because the one He's preparing for you is also walking, also healing, also waiting. And one day soon, your paths will collide, not with chaos, but with clarity, and you'll finally understand why the wait was so long. But before that moment arrives, you must understand this. Your singleness was never an accident. It was an anointing. The pain of isolation wasn't just to teach you patience, it was to awaken your power. Because had you been entangled in distractions, you wouldn't have discovered your true self. You wouldn't have developed your spiritual gifts. You wouldn't have heard God's voice as clearly as you do now. Yes, the quiet was painful, but in the quiet you found God. And what you found in that quiet is about to echo into your future relationship. Because you'll no longer love from a place of lack. You'll love from overflow. You'll no longer cling to people to feel whole. You'll walk with someone because you're already whole. And when that day comes, you won't be shocked. You'll be ready. Because God doesn't do random. He does revelation. So when people ask, why are you still single? Smile, because you know the oil on your life requires someone who won't mishandle it. You know your soul isn't for public consumption. You know your purpose cannot be yoked with confusion. You know that God Himself has orchestrated this season, not as a punishment, but as a prophecy unfolding in real time. This isn't about waiting for someone else to complete you. This is about being so rooted in who you are that when the right one comes, they find you already whole, already thriving, already walking in your divine identity. That is why you've been single, because God didn't want you to compromise your crown while looking for a companion. So breathe. You're not behind. You're not late. You're right on time. Heaven has never taken its eyes off you. You are the chosen one. You are the protected one. And your singleness is not a sign of lack. It's the signature of the sacred. The angels know your name. The heavens have a record of your tears. And God is preparing a love so divine it will feel like prophecy fulfilled. There's something about being alone in a world obsessed with connection that reveals what's truly sacred inside of you. You didn't just walk through seasons of silence, you marched through valleys of spiritual warfare, without a hand to hold, without a voice to encourage you, without a heart beside you to say, I see you. And yet, chosen one, you didn't fall apart. You didn't lose your soul, you rose. And that rising wasn't accidental, it was forged in battle. While others found comfort in companionship, you found strength in solitude. You didn't have the luxury of emotional dependency. You had to find your peace in God. You had to anchor yourself in promises you couldn't yet see. And that was no easy journey. You've been through storms that no one clapped for. You cried yourself to sleep in rooms that no one knew you sat in. And you woke up each morning wearing invisible armor, fighting spiritual enemies you couldn't name. This is what people don't see when they wonder why you're still single. They don't see the nights you battled temptation, the days you rejected counterfeit love, the moments you stood at the edge of compromise and chose purpose over pleasure. They don't know what it cost you to preserve your purity, not just your body, but your mind, your energy, your soul. They don't understand the fire you've walked through just to keep your oil sacred, but God does. He saw every moment you were tempted to settle, every time your loneliness begged you to give in to someone who didn't honor your calling. He saw the war in your soul, the part of you that longed to be held, and the part of you that knew, I must wait. And He honored it. Oh, how He honored it. Because you didn't just say no to people, you said yes to Him. You said yes to your higher timeline. You said yes to the kind of love that only heaven can orchestrate. So now the heavens are shifting. The spiritual realm is trembling because your waiting season is being weighed, and the scales are tipping in your favor. You think it's coincidence that people from your past are suddenly trying to come back? It's not. It's warfare, because the enemy knows what's coming. He knows that you're on the edge of divine union, that your spiritual match is being activated, that the prophetic pairing you've been praying for is being released. So of course He's sending distractions. Of course He's whispering lies. Of course, he's trying to make you feel like you've waited too long, like you've missed your chance. But here's the truth, chosen one. The enemy can't cancel what God has already spoken. He can delay it, he can distract you, but he cannot deny you, because what's coming for you is sealed by heaven. And the same God who kept you in the wilderness is the same God who will walk you into the promise. And this promise? It's not going to look like anything you've known before, because you've changed. You're no longer that version of yourself who would beg for love. You're no longer the one who would chase emotionally unavailable people or try to fix broken souls just to feel needed. You don't crave validation anymore. You don't live for attention. You've matured spiritually. You've grown into the awareness that your value doesn't come from being chosen by people. It comes from being chosen by God. So now you move differently. You speak with authority. You discern with clarity. You recognize red flags before they turn into ruins. And this version of you, it's not easily moved by charm, by gifts, or even by words. This version of you watches spirits, not smiles. This version of you is waiting for divine confirmation, not emotional chemistry. Because your heart no longer leads, your spirit does. That's why you've been single. God has been refining your discernment, teaching you how to listen to him in the absence of noise. He needed you to know his voice so clearly that when the right one comes, you'll recognize the frequency immediately. You won't need to be convinced. You'll feel the alignment, the peace, the spiritual resonance. It won't feel like effort. It'll feel like breath, like recognition, like you've known each other in realms beyond this one. But understand this, your singleness has made you a threat, because there's a power that comes from not needing anyone but God. There's an authority that develops when your joy isn't dependent on another person. And that kind of wholeness, it scares people. It threatens weak spirits. It intimidates those who only know how to function in codependency. That's why people have projected their insecurities onto you. That's why they've told you that you're too picky, or maybe you're just afraid of commitment. No, you're not afraid. You're aware. You're not picky. You're prophetic. You feel when a soul is chaotic. You sense when a spirit is manipulative. You see beyond the surface. And because of that, people who live in deception cannot get close to you. They might try. They might smile and say all the right things, but you see the void in their eyes. You hear the dissonance in their words, and you choose peace over pressure. That's power. And that power was born in the fire of your singleness. Do not let the world make you feel less than because of your season. You are not missing out. You are not incomplete. You are walking in a kind of consecration that most people will never understand. And the reward for that? Oh, beloved, it's coming. And when it does, it won't just bless your life. It will bless generations. Because the kind of love God is preparing you for isn't about romance. It's about restoration. It's about legacy. It's about purpose, partnering with purpose. And the world will watch. The same people who mocked your singleness will witness your sacred union. The same people who doubted your worth will see you walk hand in hand with someone who mirrors your spirit. And they'll wonder, how did that happen? But you'll know. You'll know it wasn't luck. It wasn't charm. It wasn't chance. It was God. Always God. Because when God writes your love story, it comes with fire. It comes with favor. It comes with peace that surpasses understanding. And it comes with a level of alignment that makes it unshakable. The kind of alignment that silences doubt, heals old wounds, and awakens spiritual purpose. So keep walking, chosen one. Keep standing. Keep believing. Because the one who's meant to walk beside you isn't delayed. They're being prepared, just like you were. And when you both arrive at that divine intersection, it will feel like prophecy fulfilled. Not because you needed it, but because you were ready for it. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are the chosen one. And this singleness, it was never a punishment. It was the sacred forge where God made you unstoppable. They don't see it yet, but justice is already moving in your favor. The time you spent single wasn't just a waiting period, it was a courtroom. And now the verdict is being read in heaven. God is standing as your advocate. The angels are your witnesses, and the scales are tipping toward divine recompense. This is not just about love anymore. This is about restoration, about God making public what he saw in private, about him vindicating the tears you cried alone, because he saw them all. He saw the nights when your pillow soaked up the ache of your unanswered prayers. He heard you whisper, "Why does it feel like everyone finds someone except me?" And yet, even in those moments of desperation, you didn't curse God. You didn't run into the arms of destruction. You waited, you remained, you held on, even when the silence felt unbearable. And that, chosen one, is why God is about to move publicly for you. This is a reversal season, not just of love, but of legacy. Every lie the enemy whispered in your mind about your worth is about to be shattered. Every false belief that said you weren't enough because you didn't have a partner by a certain age is being burned away, because God is revealing the truth. Your worth was never in another person's arms. It was always in his calling on your life. And now, he's lifting you out of obscurity, out of spiritual isolation, out of delay. He's elevating you into a season where everything that was hidden, your faith, your loyalty, your purity, your obedience, is about to be honored openly, not for your ego, but for his glory, because people need to see what it looks like when someone waits on the Lord and does not settle. You are a living testimony that patience births power. Yes, power. There's a power that rests on you now, one you didn't even notice forming. Because when you walk through loneliness with God, you don't walk out the same. You walk out with divine authority, with discernment that can't be faked, with peace that cannot be disturbed. You walk with your head held high, not because of pride, but because of the quiet confidence that says, "I am chosen, I am whole, I am ready." And when you carry that kind of energy, the atmosphere around you changes. Doors open that were once sealed. People treat you differently without even knowing why. The right ones are drawn to you, the wrong ones are repelled. That's not chance. That's spiritual alignment. That's the fruit of your waiting. And that's why the enemy fought so hard to convince you to settle, because he knew what was on the other side of your singleness: dominion, favor, alignment, a love that doesn't just satisfy emotions but fuels your mission. And so he sent counterfeits. He sent distractions. He sent old wounds wrapped in new faces. But you didn't bow. You kept your crown intact. You stayed faithful, even when no one understood why you were waiting. God saw it all. He saw you choose silence over drama, healing over chasing, prayer over panic. He saw you sacrifice your flesh so your spirit could lead. He saw you walk away from what looked good because it didn't feel God. That kind of obedience doesn't go unnoticed in the kingdom. That kind of purity commands heaven's attention. And now your reward is coming. But it's not just a person, it's a platform. Because what you've learned in this wilderness will now become wisdom for others. Your testimony isn't just your own. It's a roadmap for those still lost in their loneliness. People will look at you and say, "I didn't know I could wait like that. I didn't know I could be that strong. I didn't know God still rewarded purity like this." And because you waited, you'll be able to show them that yes, it's real. Yes, it's possible. Yes, the pain was worth it. That's why your love story will not be quiet. It will shake the spiritual realm. It will heal people just by being seen. Not because it's perfect, but because it's pure. Because it was forged in prayer, not pressure. Because it was formed in the fires of obedience, not the chaos of lust. Your love story will carry weight because it came from heaven, not from convenience. So don't shrink back when the blessing comes. Don't feel guilty for being elevated. You paid for this in tears. You fasted for this. You warred for this. You could have compromised 1,000 times, but you didn't. And because of that, the blessing coming to you isn't regular. It's supernatural. It's going to heal generational wounds. It's going to break bloodline curses. It's going to set a new standard. Because God never just gives you what you want. He gives you what heals you. That's why He kept you single for so long. Not just to preserve you, but to purge you from old patterns, from ancestral fears, from codependent tendencies. He had to strip you down so He could build you up. And now that you're whole, He can trust you with the blessing, because He knows you won't idolize it. You won't worship the person. You won't lose yourself in love. You'll walk beside them as an equal, not beneath them in need. This is the era of your healing union. But before it manifests, I need you to know this. You already won. Whether the partner arrives today, tomorrow, or in another season, you have already claimed victory in the Spirit. Because you discovered the love of God before the love of man. You aligned with your purpose before you aligned with a person. And that order is divine. So many people skip the process and try to rush the promise, but you didn't. You endured the pain, you learned the lesson, you trusted the pace, and because of that, what's coming to you will not bring sorrow. It will not drain you, it will not confuse you, it will not feel like a gamble. It will feel like destiny, like a spiritual homecoming, like your soul finally recognizing what it has been prepared for all along. This is your reward, chosen one. This is the justice that heaven has written in your name. The enemies of your past, both human and spiritual, will not be able to stop it. The people who laughed at your singleness will fall silent in awe. The ones who rejected you will realize they were never qualified for you. And those who tried to imitate your path without your obedience will discover that the oil can't be faked. You carry something sacred, you always have. That's why the road was harder. That's why the loneliness cut deeper. Because your calling was greater. Your love was never meant to be casual. It was meant to be catalytic, to awaken, to heal, to transform. And that kind of love only comes when you are ready. And now, beloved, you are. You may not have understood it while you were in it, but now it's beginning to make sense. The attacks weren't random. The loneliness wasn't punishment. The delay wasn't neglect. It was a divine setup, a spiritual filtration, a holy pruning. And if we're being honest, some of the things you begged God for back then would have ruined you if He had given them to you in that season. Because the truth is, you weren't just being kept single, you were being refined. And refinement always feels like rejection before it reveals its purpose. That's the paradox. God hides His treasures in pain. He builds warriors in silence. He forms kings and queens in caves. And you, chosen one, have been in that cave season, a place where no one saw your growth, your heartbreak, your private victories, where the world dismissed you, not realizing you were being groomed by God Himself. But that's how it works with those who carry spiritual oil. Your training is not public, it's sacred, it's personal, and it often looks like isolation, like delay, like confusion. But behind that veil was a divine strategy to break every false identity the world tried to put on you, because you couldn't be attached to someone until you knew who you really were. And that's where the real battle happened, not with others, but within. The war was in your mind, in your perception of yourself, in your belief about your worth. The attack wasn't just about keeping you single, it was about distorting your value. The enemy wanted you to think that no one could love you, that you were too complicated, too broken, too spiritual, too intense, that your standards were too high, that your purity was pointless. But all of that was a lie, a calculated attempt to rob you of your spiritual identity. Because if the enemy can get you to doubt your worth, he doesn't need to steal your blessing. You'll give it away willingly to someone who doesn't deserve it. That's why God had to intercept. That's why He kept closing the doors, why He allowed people to walk away, why He silenced certain conversations. It wasn't cruelty, it was clarity. He was training your spirit to see past appearances, past emotional hunger, past infatuation. He was training you to recognize the counterfeit, not with your eyes, but with your discernment. You weren't called to marry just for companionship. You were called to covenant. to destiny alignment, and that requires maturity, vision, emotional intelligence, spiritual depth. And let's be real, back then you weren't ready, and neither were they. You still held pieces of childhood wounds. You still believed love had to hurt. You still tried to earn affection instead of receive it. You still saw red flags and tried to paint them white because you didn't want to start over. But God loved you too much to let you settle there. So He allowed the pain to push you inward, to strip you of performance, to sit with the lonely parts of your soul and actually listen. And in doing so, you discovered that the love you were waiting for wasn't from another person. It was from yourself, from God, from the stillness that says, even if no one ever chooses me, I am already chosen. That moment, that deep internal shift, is when everything changed. That's when your spirit grew up. That's when you became untouchable. Not because you built walls, but because you built wisdom. And that wisdom became your covering, your armor, your light. And now that light is attracting what your old self never could. Because the person you are now would never tolerate what you used to call love. The healed you doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't shrink. The healed you walks in alignment, in dignity, in sacred confidence. You don't flirt to feel valuable. You don't give to be seen. You love because it overflows, not because it's missing. And that energy is magnetic in the spirit. That's why some people are triggered by your peace. They can't understand how someone who's alone can still glow like that, can still walk with so much power. But what they don't know is that the power wasn't born in romance. It was born in resurrection. You resurrected from places that tried to destroy you, from codependency, from rejection, from abandonment, from spiritual warfare that came through people who claimed to love you. So now you carry something rare. You carry spiritual authority. And that's why God has been so careful about who can access you, because not everyone is equipped to hold space for someone like you. You don't just need someone to take you on dates. You need someone who can stand in prayer with you, someone who understands spiritual assignments, someone who can war for your peace, not steal it. Someone who doesn't just want your body, they want your covering, your growth, your purpose fulfilled. This is not ordinary love you're called to. This is kingdom love. This is prophetic pairing. This is legacy-building, demon-crushing, God-glorifying partnership. The kind of union that makes hell nervous and heaven rejoice. That's why it took time. That's why it required solitude. Because both of you needed to become who you were born to be before you could find each other. And when you do, you'll realize it had to happen this way. The pain, the delays, the confusing seasons, it all served a purpose. It purified you. It made your yes to God unshakable. It made your no to distractions irreversible. It made your presence powerful. You don't walk into rooms looking for love anymore. You walk into rooms full of it, full of peace, full of wisdom, full of divine light. And that presence speaks louder than any words ever could. And soon, the one who matches that light will find you. Not because you chased them, but because you aligned. Not because you performed, but because you became. And when they come, it won't be dramatic or confusing. It will feel like truth, like peace, like exhale. Because two whole souls don't complete each other, they recognize each other. So if you're still single, don't let the enemy lie to you. Don't let culture shame you. Don't let your age intimidate you. What God is doing in your life has no expiration date. His promise was never about a timeline, it was about transformation. And now that you've been transformed, the promise is finding its way to you, not by your effort, but by your alignment. And that is why you had to be single. Because you weren't just waiting for love, you were being made into love. So now you see, don't you? It was never random. It was never cruel. It was never because something was wrong with you. God didn't keep you single because you were hard to love. He kept you single because your love was too sacred to waste. You weren't withheld from love. You were being prepared for love's highest form, one that doesn't just give you butterflies but gives you purpose. one that doesn't flatter your ego, but feeds your spirit. Chosen one, your singleness was not a waiting room. It was a holy altar. Every day you stayed faithful. Every night you surrendered your desires. Every tear that fell from your eyes was a form of worship. And God was watching. He didn't miss a single moment. Heaven recorded every sacrifice. Every time you chose peace over pressure, purpose over people, truth over temptation. You didn't know it then, but you were writing a love story with your obedience. And that story is not finished. It's just beginning. Because what's coming is not just a partner, it's a mirror, a divine reflection of everything God has cultivated in you. Someone who doesn't just walk beside you, but walks with you in mission, in intercession, in vision. They'll see the scars and not flinch. They'll understand the silence you once walked through and respect it like holy ground. They'll know, without you having to explain, that your waiting was sacred. And they'll meet you not with confusion or fear, but with reverence. Reverence for the journey that shaped you. Reverence for the spirit that kept you. And you, beloved, will be ready. Because now you walk in a love that doesn't beg to be seen. It radiates. You don't perform. You don't prove. You simply are. And when the divine pairing appears, it will feel like recognition, not negotiation. It will feel like you're finally breathing in the same frequency, walking in tandem with what your soul has long known but had not yet touched. But whether that day is near or not yet visible, your peace must remain intact. Your joy must remain full, because this moment right now as you sit in your singleness is not empty. It is holy. God is still here. He's not just preparing the next chapter, He's dwelling in this one, and He wants you to see the beauty of now, not the absence, but the presence, not what's missing, but what's unfolding. Because the truth is, you're no longer waiting. You're walking in power, in clarity, in divine alignment. You've stepped out of the illusion that you need someone to complete you, and into the truth that you've been whole all along. And from this place, this sacred space, love will find you. Not because you're searching, but because you're standing, rooted, ready, radiant. Let the world say what it will. Let them whisper and wonder and ask, why are you still single? Smile, because they don't understand. They don't know that you've been chosen, that you've been hidden by heaven, that your singleness wasn't a sentence, it was a sanctification. They don't see the oil on your life, but God does. And soon, the one meant for you will too. So rest now, breathe deep, no more striving, no more questioning, no more comparing your path to anyone else's. Yours was never supposed to look like theirs. You were never meant to walk the easy road. You were forged in the fire. You were built for glory. And when love comes, it will come not as a rescue, but as a response to the spiritual frequency you've reached, a response to the prayers you've prayed, a response to the love you've become. And until then, you are not alone. The Holy Spirit walks with you. The angels surround you. The Father sings over you. And I need you to hear this deep in your bones. You have not missed your moment. You have not been forgotten. You are right on time. God has not delayed the promise. He has protected it, and He has protected you. Because you, chosen one, are rare, sacred, worth the wait. And one day, very soon, love will find you in the light you carry. And when it does, you will know it was always meant to happen this way. Until then, shine, live, heal, breathe, become. The promise is already on its way.